All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Kyle Gray. Kyle, welcome, man. So awesome to have you on the show.
Kevin, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. Same here. It's kind of cool when we came into this, I was thinking, wow, this is really cool because you and I had 2 points of contact before we ever started doing this interview, and now I just discovered during our conversation before we hit the record button that we got 3 points of contact, and this is so awesome because anybody who knows me knows that I just preach relationships. And as entrepreneurs, relationships, I have long believed, are our most valuable asset. Everything else stems from that. And so you and I, we got introduced by Christina Wise. And Christina is just such a rock star at doing what she does. And I interviewed her for the podcast a while back, and she shot me an email and you an email and said, hey, I want to connect you guys because Kev runs a podcast, and Kyle, you should really be a guest on Kevin's podcast. And then in the process of you and I having a conversation before, we find out that we also are mutual friends with John Marino. And I love that guy. I love who he is. I love how he shows up. I love what he stands for. And then wouldn't you know it, as you and I are talking right before we hit the record button, we also find out that we got a mutual friend in Brandon Fong. And as if one person, 1 point of contact is always enough when it's the right person in my world, when you get connected with somebody through a mutual friend that you already have so much respect and admiration for, it just makes that. I mean, like when we start talking for the first time, Kyle, it's like we already knew each other for years thanks to Christina. And then we find about John. Now we find out about Brandon. And it's like that's like a multiple. It's not like a 3 point connection. It's like multiple, because those three people, I just hold those three people in such high regard, and I know you do too. And
Absolutely. I think it's a sign just of a similar philosophy that we both embody. If that many people, and I understand they all are really high integrity people, that
yeah,
I'm excited to discover more about you through your questions and your process. And thank you so much for having me as on this show, because the show's a labor of love, and it's about one of my favorite topics of all time. And yeah, it's a philosophy that I've cultivated it through many avenues, through many ways. And the ability to have a conversation like this on a podcast has been one of the greatest things that I've done for myself and been a part of. And so thank you for
yeah.
having me here today.
Absolutely. My honor, my honor. Well, I'll tell you what. Okay, so why don't we start off with let's start by setting a little bit of context, and I'll just turn it over to you so that you can share, give our listeners some insight and let them know, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do and the impact you guys are making. And we'll just start there, Kyle.
Absolutely. So, in its simplest form, I work with experts on their signature talks, joint venture presentations, and help them shorten those talks and increase both the emotional and the intellectual power to get a lot more conversions everywhere they speak. And how I
Okay.
do that is through a simple system of storytelling and teaching frameworks that I work with people on over the course of a few months.
Okay.
And these allow experts who are deeply passionate, who love what they do, have spent so many years immersing themselves and cultivating this forest of knowledge. And now that it comes time to share about it, they have 99 things that they want to say when it's does for one, and how do we pick it? And they sometimes get lost in their own ideas and kind of taken away on tangents, and it feels really good to say, and you feel like you're on fire when you're telling the story, but then people pretend they need to go to the bathroom and run away. And even this happens as you are growing in success. And it's
Mhm.
not necessarily just a matter of having great clients or having taught the great lessons to clients, but how do we communicate that in a way that really serves our audience?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So, okay, so when I ask this question, I mean, you don't have to reveal names or anything, but give us an example of somebody that you've helped with this. Where were they when they came to you, and what was the end result? An end result that you are just incredibly proud of, and that individual for accomplishing what they did. What's an example of like that? Share something like that with us, Kyle.
I would love to share that and share names. One of my favorite clients, his name is David A. Perez,
Okay.
who I want to share with first. He is an expert in taxes,
Mm-hmm.
and he has a B2B business and a B2C business. We started work on this B2C presentation. This is an offer for somebody who has over $100,000 in tax liabilities.
Okay.
More or less. They can do lower, but he teaches a process for anyone who has that to lower their overall taxes and then take what that would have been paid to taxes and put it into wealth generating assets. That is great for your business. And the
Wow.
problem is, there's really powerful things, but a lot of people just work with their same CPAs or tax people that have done things the same way. They turn their taxes in late and they just try to get deductions this year without really thinking strategically about it. And so when I started working with David, if you could imagine a kind of person that would create a business like this, stories, he was a little bit apprehensive about stories because he's
Okay.
a money and numbers guy. He knew he
Mm-hmm.
wanted them, but he couldn't quite figure it out. And so I have one of the things I do to help people discover their own stories is I'm really good, thanks to lots of time podcasting, asking questions and interviewing and drilling people down almost like a therapist would to find the exact moments and draw out the lines and the things and help them create the story that they need to share. And as soon as we created that first story that he really felt, and we walked right into a moment of one of his mentors' offices that when he had a tax problem, and the guy was cold and didn't have anything. And I remember just like the details of the desk and just the way that we wove this story together about his turning point and why David set out on this journey to help truly understand how to navigate taxes when you are running businesses this high, change things. Then we started to dig into his teaching. David loved to get on this whiteboard. You could imagine all of the things that he would write and have to talk about. His webinars would be 2 hours long because he would be like, we can do this and swoop it in there and a big arrow and the numbers and and a little picture of a house. Pow. It felt good. He felt like, I'm killing it up here, right? It's fire on this whiteboard. I feel so good. We cut out a lot of that. And instead of teaching people all of the ways of how he did it,
Mm-hmm.
we really focused on the limiting beliefs or the misunderstandings that lead up to the actions that they're taking right now, which took it
Okay.
from about a 2 hour long to a much shorter 45 minutes to
That's a
get
big
to.
difference. Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And instead of getting into all this how, we talked about this guy with a dental business, is paying so much, and with a few small changes, we found a way to save him this much. And it's not just about saving a lot of taxes up front, but it's about creating a wealth asset so that you don't have to be working so hard in your business all of the time forever. Or you could just be paying taxes forever because the government was plenty happy uh, to allow you to do that.
Yes.
Um, and we started to tap into that and the emotional effects and what does that mean for somebody to finally get ahead of their business and get out of things. And anyway, these are some of the ways that we worked on a presentation, and
Mm-hmm.
it was my role to help give him new perspectives and new ways to look at the expertise he already had. I'm not smarter than him. I don't know like more than him, but I'm just there to hold up reflections and allow him to think about what he already knows in new ways so we could streamline it down to the very best. And he would sell a $2,000 assessment, which is like, let
Okay.
me see how much taxes I could save you. And when he came to me, he was converting at about 14%. And we've gotten it up to 25 or 30%
Wow.
when he's giving that presentation by
Wow.
creating more emotive stories that connect his vision and his why, by addressing how he teaches and what he teaches about to really serve the audience instead of just kind of talk about what's exciting to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by having a strategy within it all to lead to getting people ready to take the next step.
Wow. I mean, I think about that in my own life and where I have invested in things over the years. And it's where I could just see myself in what the person was talking about. Not by them sharing the how we're going to do it and stuff, but just by painting the vision of like what's possible, or painting the vision of what it's like to be out of the pain that I'm currently in and stuff, you know. And that's really powerful stuff. And conversion, you're talking almost, I mean, I'm just trying to do that math in my head, but that's like 60-70% increase in conversion. That's massive. That's massive. I mean, congratulations, Kyle. That's really phenomenal. And so, okay. So, was there anything else you wanted to share? I don't want to cut you off. You look like you might have wanted to share something else.
What I love, it is an increase in conversion. I have another, I'll share a quick one. And what I love about this process is I find that it to be secretly underneath it all. I love to talk about the money that I make people, but it's secretly a transformative process. The person that you become when you intentionally upgrade your communication and visibility and authority, they astound themselves. I had another client who signed on to work with me for 6 months. He was reinventing his program, and at the beginning he said it would be awesome to get 10 people into this. And we created the talk, and we went through 6 months, and he did his launch right at about month 5. And then I remember going over this again, and I remember writing down what he wrote. And I asked him at the end of the program, I was like, so how many people came in? And he was like, oh, it was okay. We got 19. I could have done a little bit more, but oh well. And I was like, let me read you something. And I read it to him, and he didn't recognize himself. And this is a factor of looking at myself and saying, I know that there's a valuable vision here. And it's not just me. I'm not here trying to talk about how cool I am. I'm here to serve a purpose and serve a people. And I've connected with that in a new way. And that's what leads to these results that we're seeing. But we create the enrollment in yourself in a way that you've always wanted to connect with and known was there. And now not only gets you there, but you can communicate that in a way that you can reliably create the feeling in other people. And it's a practice like yoga or a martial art. It's a way of moving and thinking and communicating.
Yeah. Yeah. That is powerful. That is powerful. Okay. So now that we've got a little bit of context set, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit here. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners, Kyle. So have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Kyle, I'm just like really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Oh man, I might tear up. I'll go like a popcorn round. The first person, the gateway into being an entrepreneur and traveling all around the world and living abroad and starting in storytelling. Dan Norris hired me to be his content marketing manager for his startup
Okay.
WP Curve in 2014. That opened up the door, which eventually introduced me to James Schramko,
Oh yeah.
an amazing podcaster. Had me on his podcast. I wrote a lot of blog posts with him, and he was such a great cheerleader in the early days and introduced me to Chandler Bolt, who taught me. I worked with him on a content marketing strategy, and he taught me through just learning about him how to write books, which is where I
Okay.
wrote my first few books. Through there, I met Pete Vargas, who I was absolutely inspired at his approach to speaking and the stage and using that as a way to grow your business.
Hmm.
And I had to just connect with him and work with him, which I was also going through many different health issues that only until I was in the rooms with the experts that Pete Vargas cultivated in functional medicine and wellness did I start to learn how to understand my body.
Okay.
Where I met Dr. Grace Liu, and through getting a better control of my body, unlocked how I could control my mindset and my emotions, which helped introduce me to Mark England of the Enlifted program. So grateful for him, and I could go on, but that is to say, to just round all of these off, is my life, and I believe most people's lives, whether we know it or not, are built on these relationships where you're not sure where it's going to happen, but somebody will present you an opportunity, and you sometimes it'll be very obvious, and sometimes it won't be, where
Hmm.
things can go and they can blossom and cultivate, and showing up with value and having faith, just like what you talk about on this show and embody in a lot of the work that you do, has facilitated each one of those steps that allowed me to uh, grow a little bit more in my own identity and my own abilities and in my business. And I'm
Yeah.
so yeah, there's I could go on for a dozen more names
Yeah.
into, beyond and backwards from there, but it's a
Yeah.
phenomenal question.
Wow. Yeah. You and I are a couple of truly blessed guys because we're surrounded by just amazing people, and whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's in my life, but yes, I am surrounded by some amazing entrepreneurs, but also I just got great family, friends, and all that too. We just, because you place such a high value on relationships, Kyle, and it is really evident in how you speak about those people. I want to dig just a little deeper, and I know you would be able to come up with lots of examples of this, but the question I'm going to ask you, I just want to challenge you to come up with one, and whatever comes top of mind for you, that'll be the one. And so if you look at all these people that you just mentioned and stuff, what is an example where you personally you got to make a substantial impact to even, like, maybe when it happened, it even surprised you a little bit, that you were like, wow, that was so amazing. And you also know, hands down, that would have never happened if not for your relationship with whoever that was. What's an example of something like that, Kyle?
Wow, phenomenal question. And yeah, I it's like a flashbang of a thousand thoughts,
Yeah,
just
right.
in my mind. Um, and I'll just admit that it's difficult and unpracticed that somebody would like praise themselves for something like this. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
good of you to ask it. Um, One of my close friends, his name is Ryan Sprague, a podcaster and a psychedelic coach.
Okay.
Um, he, like many of the people I work with, really, really brilliant. And we started, he would get lost in a lot of tangents. And we started working together on his stories. And at first it was he was allowing me to practice my systems and methods and would continue to show up and apply these, and he would go on many different podcasts, and it's been so incredible to see him grow from about 2020 when I first met him, from kind of this nerdy guy to just this strong, powerful authority in his space with a booming podcast, and who's going on some of the biggest shows in podcasting right now, talking about his passion and breaking paradigms about what people think about this. And I'm proud of my impact in helping him understand the fundamentals of the right
Yeah.
story and how to teach and why. And I get to see him using the same stories we crafted together on some of the biggest shows out there. And it makes me smile.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. And you know what, you're right. It's sometimes challenging to talk about ourselves and the results we've helped other people get. And I like you am surrounded by some pretty amazing entrepreneurs who have done some who are, quite honestly, I'll just say they are absolutely world class at what they do, but yet they are some of the most humble, down to earth people you would ever meet. And I know for me, I mean, one of the things that I get to do is I get to talk about people in a far more powerful way than they would ever talk about themselves.
Well,
And
just
yeah,
to
go ahead.
just to be really specific, there's a real specific distinction that I experienced here. And
Okay.
I was very happy and proud to talk about David, who paid me well for
Uh huh.
my thing. No hesitation there. And what made the question sticky later is, to me, I interpreted it as, who is somebody that I helped and made a big impact with, and and as not a client, as like a mentor, really like helping somebody,
Yeah.
which is a different kind of feeling and a different part of myself that's a little bit less natural to reveal. And so
Gotcha.
that's and maybe the question wasn't really asked that way, but that's where I experienced that.
Well, and that's okay. That's okay. So let me ask you this: what, because this could be instructive for other people listening to this,
Yeah.
because you ain't the only one that deals with this kind of stuff, Kyle. And like, you too are somebody who's like really world class at doing what you do. Um, so why the difference for you? I mean, and maybe you don't have a great answer. I don't know, but I'm just going to throw it out there and plant a seed. Why do you feel that there's a difference between the two?
Um, hmm. Yeah, there is. So I don't have a as crisp of an answer
That's
as
okay.
I've been speaking before. Something about, if somebody's paid me to do it, then there is something like, that's my professional thing, and that's
Mm-hmm.
my That's like, I have a professional identity, and that's a lot of what you get to see here on the podcast, my professional
Mm-hmm.
identity. And then there's like my personal identity, a little bit more vulnerable. And really what I
Okay.
like and that's like who I would help, in the same ways that I saw myself served by the people that you asked me. They did give me an opportunity, but like they gave me a job, or they gave me a referral, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they helped me in that way. Yeah, which feels a little bit more of a personal thing. And it's
Yeah.
the same thing that it's the same reason why people are afraid of using a story. There's like being a little bit vulnerable and really sharing who I am when I'm not quite sure how to do it is kind of uncomfortable and doesn't feel all the way safe. And it's fun to
Mhm.
experience this again in this way now. And when it comes coupled with purpose and we can use it courageously and lead with it and show, because it's not really about me. And even in those examples, it was about the people that I helped. But I
Yeah,
was nervous about me and my own shortcomings. And these are the
yeah.
same things that people struggle with when they're like, what kind of story should I tell? And I don't think I really want to talk about the time when I felt this way on a stage of thousands of people, but when there's a purpose to it. So, anyway, bringing it kind of back around to my work and a lot of these things. Great question.
Well, and kudos to you, Kyle, for just speaking so candidly, because I can tell you, I've been doing what I do for a while, and I have been really privileged to be able to have conversations over the years, and deep conversations with some really amazing entrepreneurs and millionaires and even billionaires that, you know what, we all deal with the same exact stuff. It doesn't matter how successful somebody looks from the outside looking in, how big their business is, how great things look. It doesn't matter. We're all dealing with the same exact stuff. And what you said right there about just being real, I hate to use the word authentic, but authentic it is a good word, and just being able to just speak our truth. That is how we make the most valuable connections with other people. And I can tell you, people are starving, especially now. People are starving for real, meaningful, genuine connection. And when we find that, when we make that real, meaningful connection with people on a personal level, my God, doing business is so doggone easy, and it just happens quickly and easily and flow. I mean, if for somebody who's never experienced it, because a lot of people think it takes years to build trust with people and all that, and in certain environments, you bet it does. And there's other environments where when the two trusts are there, trust in character and trust in competence. And when those two trusts are present, well, now there's zero friction and things just happen, like I said, quickly, easily, and in flow. And and yeah, we got to be a little bit vulnerable sometimes in order to just keep it real and make those kinds of connections. And kudos to you for just doing that, Kyle. And that I just want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation, because I know a lot of people are going right now, man, Kev, I really like Kyle. I really appreciate Kyle. I like the way he shows up. For anybody that's kind of feeling that way right now, Kyle, how can they find any websites, any resources we can share and include so they can find out more about what you guys are doing and stuff?
Absolutely. You can go to the storyengine.co, and
Okay.
I have a podcast there. I have a few books you can learn more about me and see some of my process. On my show, I interview thought leaders, a lot like you, Kevin, and help them co-create stories that they can use from the stage live on the show. People show up to have a story made for them by the time the interview's done. And
Oh,
so it's
wow.
it's a real blast if you want to see me at work. And so yeah, check me out there, or I'll have my Instagram and LinkedIn linked below. That's where I spend most of my social media time.
Okay.
If you want to
Okay.
find me there.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, once again, thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Yeah. Um, that same thing of being authentic and finding the purpose in your vulnerability. And the real magical thing is this is also a resource that we need throughout our growth journey as entrepreneurs. And what I mean by that is we'll experience many discomforts and challenges, and sometimes we don't know where they're going to come from or how. And any pain is bearable when there is purpose to it. And we can either come to this retroactively and kind of look at an old story and think, oh, that was an ugly moment, but oh, maybe I can share this from the stage. Or for those of us fortunate and skillful and present enough, and I admit that this is a difficult thing that I don't achieve all of the time myself, when we can find the purpose even within the moments of challenge and see through that and connect with that and use that as a source of fuel to carry us through. It's something that we make for ourselves, and it's something that we do for our audience and for our purpose. And I invite you all to see the work that you're doing as something to stand for, as a divine responsibility, because there are people out there that need your help and they need to see you and understand you in the sea of AI content and so many just people out there trying to distract. If you really believe that you have a skill that could help somebody, then they deserve to hear from you.
Yeah. 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 Amen. Amen. Well, Kyle, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. I really appreciate it. I am totally stoked to get this out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs. So thanks again, Kyle. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Kevin.